high wattage stations, mostly entertainment, get a comfortable zone. Educators and other small stations get pushed a little further away. And amateurs are now located so far out that frequencies are barely usable. At least it is believed they are barely usable. They are on the shortwave spectrum. And of course, later it turns out that the spectrum is pretty useful. But at that time, it was like, oh, you know, far out there, nobody will hear you anyway. Hoover moved radio services such as maritime radio, amateur radio, and government operations from the newly created broadcast band to other frequencies, while he divided broadcast stations into 3 groups, according to wattage. Now again, another quote. The position of what's called big business on this one. Yes. Yeah, okay. Big business meant good reception is possible if our lawmakers will allow the separation of broadcasting wave bands and will hush the individual who today ruins the entertainments of thousands by the operation of an antiquated or improperly adjusted telegraph apparatus. It's pretty clear that this is against amateurs. Like, the industry says, well, those amateurs, they're like nasty, they don't have proper equipment, they are only disturbing us, go make them away. Somewhat like that. And another issue comes up, an early patent war that is in, well, it's laughable like many of the patent wars we have today. Basically, the biggest companies that had to do with radio and broadcasting had cross-licensed each other to no end, so they could do anything and anybody else couldn't. But this patent war went a little further. AT&T had a patent on not just radio equipment, but using that radio equipment to broadcast entertainment and news. So people would buy broadcasting equipment from them and start broadcasting, not thinking of the possibility that they were infringing a patent just by broadcasting. AT&T tried to enforce that patent, but it was clear that this was a publicity nightmare because it just looked like AT&T wanted to shut down all the stations that would not pay a significant fee, and was, yeah, it's hilarious. But to make sure that everybody understood that they are serious about it, they sue a station in New York, WHN, for not paying the fee. A press war enters while at the same time this cross-licensing stuff is investigated by the government, because if it constitutes monopoly. The complaint is dropped only in 1928. Yeah. The public clearly perceives this as an issue of censorship, but WHN curbs because it cannot sustain litigation. The case is settled. So AT&T could be rejoice, but by 1926 this issue is dead because it's just not possible to communicate to the public why there should be, or what sense of patent on broadcasting entertainment makes. Then in 1924, the third radio conference is called in by Hoover, now attended by 100 delegates. There are new issues like establishing high power stations, controlling advertising, establishing a priority of broadcast material, and again, let's say fighting between the small and the bigger stations continues, but it does not, it's actually of interest to people, so the small stations tell their listeners that they should send letters to Hoover before that conference, and he gets 6,000 letters of listeners on behalf of small stations. It is said that Hoover tries to promote small stations, but knows most innovation comes from the big ones. So of course only the big ones are the ones interested in establishing high power stations, only they can pay for it. I won't go into the advertising issue much, and yeah, the establishing a priority of broadcast material is this question about like news and entertainment and education and what role each of these should play. The industry wants to get both pros for their high power stations and wants to get preferred treatment because they say they are the only ones capable of providing quality content because you have to pay for talent. They try to put away with the issue of censorship and sort out programming ourselves. And they start to develop long-distance networks, which is a specificity of the American system I will go into later on. Hoover's answer to this is there are three kinds of free for radio. One is, the broadcaster is free to broadcast what he wants, but another one is the listener is free to hear what he wants, like he does not, and this is a big issue at that time because radio is such an intimate thing because it comes into the home. So Hoover mainly says that because of this intimacy and because like parents cannot just shut out radio from the home, so whatever comes, the children will listen to it, there has to be a kind of caution. But there's another. Whatever. And yeah, government shall not regulate material. This goes through all the time. There is no direct censorship. Like stations are not allowed to, for example, let the candidate of one party to the air, but not of another one. They have to treat everyone equal if they pay, if they sell airtime. But direct censorship is more or less substituted for by fees. Fees are simple because if you just make the fee high enough, only the candidates of the bigger parties will be able to pay for it, and you don't have to think about the problem of maybe communists getting on the air or the anti-American sentiments we had earlier. And this is the way this is handled for, at least the time my lecture covers. But still, radio is booming, and radio overcrowding becomes a problem again. While, that's an important point. Public interest is defined as entertainment because, people want entertainment, so this is a public interest. This sounds trivial now, but it will be much, much less trivial when we come to the Weimar Republic, where there is a completely different notion of public interest. So the fourth and last radio conference has 500 delegates. She promises program diversity brought to listeners by a reliable, corporately controlled radio industry. It did not hold, but people believed it. She still clings to the notion that self-regulation is better than government oversight, partly saying that, well, the big stations will act in the public interest because they need to have listeners, so they will do what listeners want and therefore serve the public interest. In all these discussions about radio legislation in the US, there are some recurring notions like the technocratic mindset, called so by Slotin. New complex electronic inventions like radio and television seem mainly to involve problems of science and technology rather than fundamental issues of private property, democratic rights, or economic control. Therefore, most of the people listen to as experts in hearings and stuff were engineers. They believed they were the ones able to solve those issues. They believed they were completely rational and therefore able to do that. They did not think that maybe they could act in the interest of the firms they were, or the companies they were employed by. But this also meant that radio was left much to its own, and the real regulation mostly concerned stuff like frequency bands, etc. Another one is responsible free speech. What I said was, because the radio comes into the home, and the freedom not to listen is not really considered as one. If your choice is only to, either I like what the radio is telling me or I can stop listening to it, this is no real choice, or at least is not conceived as one. And there's a lovely discussion between advocates of an open discussion and advocates who say, we have to look after the public welfare. Same as public interest as pro-industry or versus diversity. And of course, connected to that, free speech and liberty, that is the repressionists who say, public welfare, we have to be careful what we let on the air. Nothing anti-American, and the libertarians who are more afraid of people getting shut out of the airwaves. So, any questions so far? Okay. In Germany, things were completely different. Yes, very, very different. So, again, I'm going to talk about the very early things in World War I, and then the Weimar Republic, and then I'm going to lead over to a little bit of stuff about the Third Reich, but not much. The one person whose influence is maybe comparable to Herbert Hoover in Germany is Hans Bredow. He was an engineer employed by Telefunken. Telefunken, a company was founded especially for the German military to advance radio technology, and one that is, of course, based in Berlin. There's still a very old small skyscraper named after them, in which now the German Telekom resides. But so Bredow takes up the competition with Marconi and gets to break it in 1912. He is the first one to broadcast music during World War I in 1917. That is right on the front for soldiers, of course, because at that time in Germany they are the only ones to receive it. And after the war, he gets to be the head of the Radio Broadcasting Commission that was established to advance public broadcasting in Germany. At that time, I don't have really numbers about amateurs in Germany. They must have existed, but not many. Nobody even mentions really that there were some. I can't imagine that, but that's how it is. That only changes in World War I, when 190,000 men are trained as radio operators. The army sends daily reports from Hauptfunkenstelle Königs Wusterhausen, so this can be seen as the beginning of broadcasting in Germany. But problems arose when the war was over. Namely, those